Welcome to Section 5 of the ASC 470 Debt Accounting course. In this section, we are going to tackle one of the most consequential decisions in debt accounting, figuring out whether a change to your debt is a modification or an extinguishment. The answer determines whether you recognize an immediate gain or loss, and it can move your income statement significantly. Let us get into it. By the end of this section, you will be able to explain why it matters whether a debt change is classified as a modification or an extinguishment. Apply the 10% test step by step. Account for fees correctly under each outcome. Calculate a gain or loss on extinguishment, and present that gain or loss correctly on the income statement. These are practical skills you will use every time your organization renegotiates or retires debt early. Here is the key thing to understand before we look at any rules. Two companies can restructure their debt on the same day under nearly identical terms, and one might record nothing on the income statement while the other books a multi-million-dollar loss. That is not an error. It is the direct consequence of how the change is classified. Modification means the old debt lives on, costs stay deferred, and there is no gain or loss. Extinguishment means the slate is wiped clean. All unamortized costs hit the income statement right now. The stakes are high, which is why the accounting standard gives us a specific test to resolve it. ASC 470 gives us a single quantitative test to resolve the modification versus extinguishment question. The idea is elegant. If the new debt is substantially different from the old debt, measured by the present value of cash flows, then economically the old instrument no longer exists and should be removed from the books. The threshold for substantially different is 10%. Most people assume the test compares interest rates or principal amounts, but that is not what happens. It compares present values of future cash flows, discounted at the original effective rate. That distinction matters, especially when your debt has fees, discount, or premium baked in. Let us walk through the mechanics. Step 1. Take all the cash flows under the new debt terms, every interest payment and the principal repayment, and discount them using the original effective rate on the old debt. Step 2. Take the remaining cash flows on the old debt and discount them using that same original rate. Step 3. Calculate the difference between those two present values and divide by the old present value. The surprising part is that you always use the original effective rate, not the new rate. That keeps the test focused on the economic substance of the change rather than the new pricing. When the test comes in at 10% or less, you are in modification territory. Here is what that means in practice. The old debt does not disappear, you carry it forward. Any unamortized discount, premium, or issuance costs that were sitting on the balance sheet before the change continue to be amortized over the remaining life of the debt. You do not write them off. You do not recognize a gain or loss on the modification itself. You simply recalculate the effective rate based on the updated carrying amount and move on. The only immediate adjustment to the carrying amount comes from fees paid to the lender. Those reduce the carrying value and get amortized under the new effective rate. Watch out for this one, it catches a lot of people. When you pay fees as part of a modification, you must split them into two buckets. Fees paid directly to the lender, think amendment fees. Waiver fees reduce the carrying amount of the debt and get amortized into interest expense over the remaining term using the new effective rate. Fees paid to third parties, your lawyers, your financial advisors, are expensed immediately in the period you pay them. They never touch the balance sheet. Most people assume all transaction costs get deferred, but that is not what happens under modification accounting. Only lender fees are deferred. Third-party costs go straight to the income statement. One of the most important features of modification accounting is how quietly it passes through the income statement. There is no gain or loss event. The only immediate hit is the third-party fees, lawyers, advisors, which are expensed in the period you incur them. Everything else, the lender fees, the existing unamortized costs, gets spread into interest expense over time under the new effective rate. This gradual absorption is exactly why companies sometimes prefer to structure a debt change to stay within the 10% threshold. Keeping it as a modification avoids the income statement shock that extinguishment can bring. When the 10% test comes in above the threshold, or when you simply repay or repurchase debt before maturity, you have an extinguishment. The old debt is gone. You remove it entirely from your balance sheet, including every unamortized discount, premium, and issuance cost that was attached to it. You bring on the new debt at its fair value if there is a debt exchange, and you calculate a gain or loss on the difference. This is the scenario where income statement impact can be significant. All those deferred costs that modification would have let you spread out over years are now recognized in a single period. Before you can calculate the gain or loss on extinguishment, you need the carrying amount of the old debt. This is not the face value. It is the net book value after all the adjustments that have accumulated over the life of the debt. You start with the face value. You add back any unamortized premium, because premium increases what you effectively owe in book terms. You subtract unamortized discount. That reduces the carrying amount. And you subtract unamortized issuance costs, because those are a contra liability that has not yet been charged to interest expense. The result is the carrying amount you compare against what you paid to retire the debt. The formula itself is straightforward. Take the carrying amount of the old debt, the net figure you just calculated, and subtract the consideration you paid to retire it. If you paid cash, that is the cash amount. If you exchanged for new debt, you use the fair value of the new debt. When the carrying amount is higher than what you paid, you have a gain. You settled the obligation for less than it was worth on your books. When you paid more than the carrying amount, you have a loss. Both the gain and the loss are recognized immediately. There is no spreading, no deferral. The moment the old debt is extinguished, the gain or loss is on your income statement. Let us put the formula to work with a concrete example. A company holds a bond with a face value of $1 million. The bond was originally issued at a discount, and $20,000 of that discount remains unamortized. There are also $8,000 of unamortized issuance costs on the balance sheet. The carrying amount is therefore $1 million minus $20,000 minus $8,000, which equals $972,000. The company repurchases the bond early in the open market for $985,000. The calculation: $985,000 paid minus $972,000 carrying amount equals a loss on extinguishment of $13,000. That loss is recognized immediately on the income statement. Once you have the gain or loss, where does it go on the income statement? The answer is other income and expense, the non-operating section. It must be presented as a separate line item so users of the financial statements can see it clearly. Here is something that surprises some accountants. Under current US GAAP, extinguishment gains and losses are no longer classified as extraordinary items. A SU 2015-01, issued by FASB in 2015, eliminated the extraordinary item category entirely from US GAAP. So you will no longer see that label in the financial statements. But the separate line item requirement remains, and you must disclose the nature and amount of the gain or loss. Let me flag the mistakes that show up most often in practice. First, and this is the most common, using the new interest rate instead of the original effective rate when running the 10% test. The standard is clear. It must be the original rate. Second, getting the fee treatment backwards, expensing lender fees when they should be deferred, or deferring third-party fees when they should be expensed immediately. Third, forgetting to include unamortized issuance costs in the carrying amount calculation, which understates the carrying amount and distorts the gain or loss. And finally, labeling an extinguishment item as extraordinary. That category no longer exists under US GAAP. Each of these errors can result in a material misstatement. Let us bring it all together. The 10% test under a SC 47050 is the gatekeeper. It tells you whether a debt change is a modification or an extinguishment, and you must always use the original effective rate to run it. Modification is the quieter outcome. The old debt lives on, unamortized costs continue to amortize, and only third-party fees hit the income statement immediately. Extinguishment is the reset. The old debt is gone, every unamortized cost is written off now, and the resulting gain or loss is recognized immediately as a separate non-operating item. Get the carrying amount right, get the fee treatment right, and you will handle both scenarios with confidence. Thank you for completing this section on debt modification and extinguishment. Thank you for watching. Subscribe for more training from PNJ Group.